her a round of applause. Hello, nice to meet you. Thanks for hot-footing it over from quite recently being
in this tree
on the main
here.
stage. Yeah, we try and bring the Nordic vibes to Nordic Business Forum.
I love
it. Super. So we've got viewers from 34 different countries watching us on the live stream, as well as everyone here at Nordic Business Forum, which is, I think, almost 50 countries represented here in person. Not everyone watching this chat will have seen you in action earlier. So for anyone who missed your keynote talk, can you just give us the sort of 60-second summary of how the right questions need to be asked to spark creativity?
I think we spend all of our work week checking things off our to-do list, responding to emails, and we don't have enough space to say, are we doing the right stuff? Should we be even doing this? And I really want everybody here to just add a little bit of time for strategic thinking or curiosity to say, how could I be doing what I do even better?
You showed a brilliant picture of your son or daughter, I'm not sure, in a bin, which just showed the curiosity of my nephew's 3, so he's doing all these sorts of strange and weird and wonderful, curious things today. Why is it so hard for us to hang on to that curiosity and that playfulness later on in the workplace?
Oh, well, I will tell you, I'm trying to raise very curious children, and it is very annoying. Do you know, like, my daughter is constantly causing trouble and flooding the sink, and she says to me, Mama, I'm just being curious. And that is very annoying, and you want to put a stop to it as a parent. And the school system does a great job of putting a stop to it and making us feel like there's one right answer. And so I have a job teaching adults how to be more curious, because every part of our growing up destroys that curiosity inside of us. And I think it's up to us to find that inner child. But can I make a promise to everybody listening? If you can find that curiosity, it comes with the joy and the wonder that you felt as a child. And don't you want to just bottle that up and drink it every single morning?
Definitely.
Yes.
Can you give us an example of a curious question that led to a major breakthrough with one of the clients or customers you work with?
So every year I work as an entrepreneur in residence at a large organization, and they let me talk about what we're learning. And this year it's at a large bank, and my first question there, the bank is over 150 years old. It's been around forever. And I was like, tell me about the top 2% of our customers. And it's just like not a question that's been asked there. And once we dug into the data, the top 2% are responsible for like an incredible chunk of the profitability, just a very large percentage. And then we said, okay, well, what do those people have in common? And they happen to be in 5 specific professions. Wouldn't that be interesting to your business to know that almost half of your profit comes from 5 professions? And couldn't you create interesting products and services and offering to attract more of those people? So I just don't think people ask all the things that they have available to them to be like, oh, I wonder this about my customers or my employees.
I'm also interested in the workplace culture, because in order to be curious and to feel that you can ask questions at work, the people you're working with need to be receptive to that.
Yes.
And sometimes there can be that feeling that, oh, I don't want to disrupt this meeting, I don't want it to go on too long. So what kind of tips would you have for people here that are listening to you and want to be more curious next week when they're back at work, but they're not used to being curious?
Start being curious about the things you control 100% of. Don't worry about other people. And then when they see your results, they're like, what are you doing? You'll be like, let me ask you some questions around here. So most people, they talk about what they can't control, their leadership or whatever. Start with your schedule. Be more curious about how you spend your time, or how you could be a better parent or a spouse. And it's when you create space for that stuff, you become addicted to how it feels to constantly grow and improve.
Super. Keep the questions coming, by the way, for Diana while she's still here. I want to talk a little bit about investing and starting businesses in the tricky times we're living in. We've talked so much about volatility here in the HS Visio studio, and I know that you've talked before about the importance of making hard decisions, and it's probably a harder decision than ever to say, am I going to gamble? We know that so many startups fail. Am I going to gamble in 2025? What would you say to people here that are thinking of starting something new?
So I used to be a senior fellow at the Kauffman Foundation, which is the largest foundation that studies entrepreneurs, and times of volatility create the most successful startup companies. So it is the best time during times of volatility to create platforms and solutions. I would say, like, number one, it is a safer investment in times of volatility. Number two, you shouldn't invest in companies that haven't solved a problem, don't know their customers at an intimate level, and are just guessing about what's possible. When I had a startup, the joke is, like, don't sell anything, because if you have any sales, they're not as good as your made up imaginary sales that you could tell investors you could have, which is such a joke. Be the kind of investor that says, show me that people will buy anything from you.
Okay. And if you are launching something new, or if you're planning to invest in something new, how important do you think it is to have a failure plan and to visualize that possibility? Or should you be there assuming that it will go well for you, even if we know the stats show that it doesn't go well for the majority of startups?
Rick Rubin's going to be here later, and I got to talk to him on the phone before today to prep for our interview.
Wow.
And I said to him, hey, a lot of entrepreneurs, they say we have a lot more failures than we do successes. Would you say that's true for you? And he was like, definitely no. And I was like, okay, tell me more about that. And he said, if I put something out into the world that I'm proud of, it's not a failure. And for me, that, like, changed how I think about success and failure in general. So no, I don't plan for failure, but I also believe that everything I do is an experiment, and I'm not so tied my ego to the outcome to say I could do it better or I could do it differently in the future.
Super. Lots of people in the audience here are C-suite leaders with exceptional skills, but it is also quite a tough job market out there. We're seeing a lot being written in the media right now about people who've held top positions at companies that are struggling financially, and people with years of experience are finding themselves looking for work. How would you encourage people to embrace curiosity while figuring out those next steps of their career?
So I wrote this LinkedIn post about how I think everybody should be fired every 2 years. And I'm sorry, I don't mean like all the negative things about being fired, but I mean when that happens to you, for most people, it's a time to reflect and be like, I didn't want to do that anyway. And what I really want to do is this. And I think we don't need that kind of terrible negative experience to have a reflection every 2 years to be like, do I want to do this? And am I going to let an organization make that decision for me, or can I make that decision without something horrible happening in my life, and to do it on my own terms? So I think we can be curious on a regular basis about, like, are we happy? Are we doing things that are fulfilling and serving us at a deep level?
We've got some questions for you. This one says, it's quite a broad question, but how come the US celebrates hustle culture while Europe doesn't look up to it? And I think that's also very relevant to what we were just talking about, hustling your way into the next thing rather than just going through the normal recruitment process.
I co-authored a book with a Canadian woman, and during our book writing process, we each had a baby. And I was on a Zoom conference call during labor, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna put you on mute, something medical is happening. And people were like, do you need to go? And I was like, no, it's totally fine. And I said to my co-author, like, I mean, I'll talk to you in a week or two, you know, I'm gonna be good, ship shape. And then she had a baby, and she was like, I'll talk to you in 18 months. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, that's what we do in Canada. I was like, yeah, but you get paid for it, but you can still work. She's like, but I'm not gonna. And to me, it was like such a realization about how different cultures approach having children and the values. I think it completely changed my mind about how to approach work and family. So yes, it's incredibly, Americans who work for European companies have to be forced to take vacations. Like, I've talked to so many, we don't understand it.
But it is interesting because actually some companies from the Nordics, such as Spotify, which has been recruiting international talent from abroad because of good packages like parental leave, they've now exporting those policies to other countries.
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily always
Keep doing it.
always being taken up to the same extent.
Can we talk about how complimentary our outfits are on stage.
I like this complimentary. It's great. Totally unplanned. Let's take a few more audience questions. We've got a couple of minutes left.
Great.
This one, what failure or wrong turn ended up unlocking your biggest growth? And I'm just going to take a sip of water while you answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started a company that was a really fast-growing company and then crashed and burned as quickly as it rose. It was growing so fast that a VC fund was like, hey, would you like $1.5 million more? And we were like, I don't know, I'm not sure. Anyway, crashed and burned. And while things were going down, I journaled about what was happening because it was very difficult for me and I couldn't really share it with the employees. And that journal actually turned into my first book. And that book started a new career for me. So the worst thing that ever happened to me professionally turned into the best thing that ever happened to me professionally. And I actually feel the same way as Amazon does about their investments. Like, there are no failures if you take what you got from it, the assets from the thing that didn't work out, and say, what's here that could be something even better?
Yeah. Apologies, I've been battling.
No problem.
I've been battling this sore throat since yesterday.
No problem. I think most people waste their failures. They waste their failures by never talking about them and shutting everything down. And even if it didn't work out, there are assets in that failure, people you met or things that you created that could be turned into something amazing.
Thank you. And if people would like to find more resources about being curious, if they're curious about being curious, where can they find out more?
Talk to a 5-year-old. I think the best way, but seriously though, if you talk to a 5-year-old, they ask you the kind of questions like, why does this happen like this? And why can't we do that? And it gives you the perspective of like how to look at life anew and how to re-experience things. And what if you could bring that perspective to your work and see the opportunities for innovation?
I love that. When you could have promoted all of your own material, but really it is about trying to get back to that mindset of being a kid.
Did I mention it's more fun to be curious, at work?
Yeah, super. Well, thanks so much for joining us here in the HS Physio studio. Please give it up for Diana Kander.
Thank you.